Salutations, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. So this video is a debate. The motion is this House believes that freedom of expression is dangerous. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the House, this House believes that freedom of expression is dangerous, and that's why I propose that it ought to be severely curtailed. Let me lay out for you the way in which freedom of expression can and often does imperil us. So bad ideas are propagated every day. It used to be that you had to get a newspaper or a publishing house to print your ideas, your claims, but that's no longer the case. And these publishing companies and newspapers, they at least stake their reputation on veracity, on publishing something decent, and these things were traceable as to who published them. Because of the internet, there's been an explosion of disinformation, of misinformation, of hate speech and bile. And that's why, that's very dangerous, because these things can be spread very quickly by anyone, any lunatic, no matter how unhinged or how malevolent. And incitement to crime has always been against the law, so we're not proposing anything new in a sense. Even in the most liberal society, there is some limitation on freedom of expression. Because words lead to action. If I say, kill that man right now, that would be a crime, that would be incitement to murder, even if the person I encourage to kill another doesn't kill that other person. And if the person I encourage to kill another person indeed goes ahead and commits murder, I am equally culpable, as if I had done it by my own hand. So likewise, in many countries, such as England and Wales, incitement to racial hatred or religious hatred is also a crime, likewise in the Republic of Ireland. So demonizing other races and faiths is illegal in many jurisdictions. So rancorous philippics are not some things that we should encourage or even tolerate. So we believe in a certain degree of freedom of expression, but obviously not to go too far, because diatribe is unhealthy for society as a whole. And in many lands, poison pen letters have been illegal for a very long time. Now these things have to be seriously insulting. They can't be saying, I don't like you. It has to be grossly and calculatedly offensive. So I'm going to trot out that hoary old chestnut, the one about no freedom of expression law would protect someone who shouted fire in a crowded theatre. All right, that comes from the United States, that dictum, because you're saying something false, if it's presuming there was no fire, by the way, and it's going to make people react in a certain way, and it's dangerous, and they may get knocked over and trampled. So that's that. There are also libel laws. You can't try and ruin someone's reputation without expecting some comeback. That's a civil matter, but we suggest it ought to be criminal. So people take offence at these things, and there are fighting words. Even in England and Wales, there's this legal principle that if you say something which is so foully insulting that the person just cannot let that one go and is going to hit you for it, well, that's also a crime. It can't be, say, you silly wazzick. It's got to be a lot worse than that. So we need placidity in our society, and that will lead to social harmony, and then there'll be friendship, at least cooperation everywhere. It's difficult enough to get on with some people anyway, but if people are allowed to be hideously and cruelly insulting, then tranquility is going to be a lot harder to come by. So there are lies, damned lies, and statistics, as Mark Twain said, and we can only make decisions if we are given accurate information. A free society or democracy relies on the truth being out there, on people being able to make up their mind because they're grounding their decisions on facts. And it's like they say that an uninformed choice is no choice at all. Well, often we're misinformed by people deliberately misleading us or telling outright fallacies to get us to vote for this way or that. So democracy can only exist if the truth be known. And that's why we've got to criminalise deliberately spreading fake news. So I think it was Mark Twain who said that a lie is halfway around the world before the truth has got his pants on. This is the trouble, because somebody, especially on the internet, who publishes something which is bogus, they will convince many people, and it's very hard to debunk and disconfirm these falsehoods. And no matter how much effort you put into that, no matter how authoritatively you disprove such claims, some people will still fall for it, will still believe it. Anyway, so there's so much vituperation of various people on the internet, and disgusting lies are spread about them, and that's the trouble. Okay, we could take libel action, but sometimes they can't be identified, so we could get these things taken down in the first place off Facebook, other social media platforms. So I would like to point out how dangerous some of these bogus claims are. There's a lot of anti-science drivel published these days. The anti-vaxxers telling people not to have their children vaccinated, and completely inventing the notion that these vaccines are dangerous and the big pharma is trying to poison us all. Now, it's true there was mercury in some of these things a long time ago, but that was being rectified decades back. So this is an example of fake news. And then people die because they don't take the medicines that they should do. So attacks on the honour of a person are also to be deprecated. If your name is besmirched, then it'll be very difficult to undo that damage. Your good name may never recover if someone is spreading a false statement about you. This statement says that you've committed a foul crime, as happened to, what was his name, Lord McAlpine, that you have a communicable disease, that you're grossly incompetent in your profession, that you're very dishonest, that you are revolting in your personal habits. And that will plant a seed of doubt in the mind of even your dearest friend. He or she will never quite trust you again. They'll be mentally reviewing all their interactions with you, and in the back of their mind, they'll always think, is it true? A bit true? So these are vicious lies, and they ought to be penalised with criminal sanctions. So a criminal libel law is needed, not just damages, actual jail time. And then people would think twice about saying things which are false about someone, especially if it's going to wreck that person's reputation, cause such a person to be shunned and avoided and ostracized. So a statute against knowingly disseminating falsehoods that are substantially bogus, that's what is needed. It can't be something which is a bit inaccurate. This New Zealand mosque shooting, 49 people were killed. If you'd said 48 or 50, no, we're not suggesting that should be a crime. It happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. If you got mixed up and said it happened in Auckland, New Zealand, we're not saying that you should be punished for that. But if you invented a terrorist attack that did not happen, that would be a crime. Or indeed denied that this event had occurred altogether, that would be a crime. A bit like Alex Jones claiming that the Sandy Hook shooting never took place, that there were actors and so on, which of course is monstrously insulting to the parents of the children who were murdered. So there are so many vehement lies are spread on the internet, and these acidic messages should no longer be published or broadcast. So no more bile, please. Let's just be civilized and interact with each other in a mature and decent fashion. I'm not opposed to all expression, obviously. There's a range of reasonable opinions, things I don't share, but people ought to be allowed to say. So there's room for civilized debate, obviously, but some things are beyond the pale of human tolerance. Even in a debating society, one would have to withdraw a remark if it was simply unacceptable. So for the reasons I've already outlined, I beg to propose. Now, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I wish to oppose this motion for numerous reasons. Well, first of all, freedom of expression is a vital freedom. Look at the United States, where it's their First Amendment in their Constitution. Liberty without liberty of expression is no liberty at all. As I've said elsewhere, free speech really is the canary in the coal mine for freedom generally. And once this canary drops off its perch, that is the beginning of the end. It was John Milton's book, forgive me when I mispronounce this, Areopagitica, where he wrote, where he was against censorship, and he said, we need to hear bad ideas as well as good ones, otherwise we shouldn't be able to tell the difference. And who's to decide what's a bad idea? That's one of the hilarious conundrums about this sort of thing. Somebody's got to read the whatever it is, the extremist material or the falsehood, to decide that it's extremist or a falsehood. So their minds are being exposed to it. And how come it's acceptable for them to read this but not everybody else? It's a bit like when the Catholic Church had Index Librorum Prohibitorum. So obviously the priests had to read this kind of thing, but the ordinary people weren't allowed to. So they wanted to ban anti-religious books. It'd be wrong if an anti-religious country banned religious books. Come on. This whole idea that certain things have got to be forbidden is self-defeating, because someone else has got to read them in order to decide that they're bad. So yes, there is some animus in society, and that's the price we pay for being free, and if we're not allowed to have any freedom at all. And who are these control freaks who arrogate to themselves the right to determine what we shall hear and what we shan't, and claiming certain things are extremist? What is extremist? I've yet to hear a definition of that. An extremist is just what the powers that be call extremist. The powers that be might be extremist. Tariq Ali's published a book about this entitled The Extreme Centre. Now, there's this specious notion that there's a political spectrum, and if you're on either end of that, you're extreme, so therefore you're not allowed to be there. All right, so we're going to have to ban them and make it a bit narrower. But still, somebody's as the very outliers, so you have to narrow the ideological field of what's permissible. Okay, and then somebody's still the outlier, and you can see how we'll progressively narrow and narrow it till really there's only one opinion, one belief which is allowed. That's preposterous, and that is stealth totalitarianism. It comes in, it's invidious, it comes by these little usurpations of our freedom to speak our minds, and it's immensely emancipating to say what you actually believe. So I believe, like Socrates, question everything. Don't take things on trust. Reason it out for yourself, because they're vested interests who would have you believe this, who would try and have you disbelieve that, and who won't let you hear another point of view. So things that were once 2 standard deviations beyond the mean are now accepted. 200 years ago, if I said that women should be allowed to vote, people would have laughed their heads off and said that I was crazy. The idea that slavery should be abolished, say, 250 years ago, people would have said that that was outlandish, extremist nonsense, and on and on. And it's still in some oppressive states that quite reasonable beliefs are considered to be completely unacceptable. So we need asperity between different political parties, otherwise it's a conspiracy against the voters, and they're not offered a choice. There's no point in being allowed to vote, for example, if you don't have real choices, parties which are significantly different to each other, and actually validates the winner by having people who really are their ideological, diametrical opponents to defeat, to vote against. And I think we leave up to the voters to decide what's extremist, not the politicians. So the press and the press are the eyes and the ears of the public. That's what the Attorney General of England and Wales, Haver, said way back in the 80s, which is why they have a right to publish things, because we need to be exposed to different ideas and different statements, occasionally even misstatements. We've got to work out what's true and what's not. And we insult the public, we do them a disservice by underestimating their intelligence. They have some cognitive faculties, and they can critically analyse some of the articles before them, some of the claims of fact, which might turn out to be false, some of the expressions of opinion, which are highly tendentious. So controversy is good, indeed is vital for the body politic. So though some things rankle, they should still be said. We need to grow up, all right? Grow a thick skin. You've got to take it, things you don't like. So it's really, I suppose, just power-hungry politicians, those ones who are hypersensitive, talk about snowflakes who are trying to shut down freedom of expression. So restriction of freedom of expression is perilous, not freedom of expression itself. The legislation proposed would have a chilling effect in entertainment, that you can't crack a joke, well, because some people can't take a joke. In the United Kingdom, there used to be a Lord Chamberlain's department censoring performances. Any theatrical performance, they'd have to watch it, and certain words would be underlined in blue, hence the expression blue joke. They weren't allowed. You know, the BBC in the 1950s, people weren't allowed to crack jokes about politics, religion, the royal family, or sex. Now, the best jokes would include all 4 of those. No wonder people went in for racist humour. There wasn't much left when the first 4 categories were banned. So we can censure bad material, we shouldn't censor bad material. So I suggest to you we've made an enormous advance by getting rid of pre-performance censorship. So, as I said, what we see is creeping totalitarianism, and it must be firmly resisted. No, do not let it take 1 inch forward. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Say absolutely no concessions to this bigoted and pernicious campaign to take away the right to say what we believe. So jail for those who dissent, I mean, who decides what's acceptable, what's not acceptable? Why should we trust the government? They are being extremists, the other side of the house, in trying to take away our right to say what we want. And by the way, I defend their right to put this argument. It's the old Voltaire quotation, the only one everybody knows. I disagree with you, but I defend to the death your right to say it. So necessity is the excuse of tyrants, it is the creed of slaves, so saith Pitt the Elder. Now, who would want to bring in such sweeping censorship legislation? Well, such laws already exist in places like North Korea or China. They existed in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. I would suggest to you this is not company that one would wish to keep. They say you can judge a person by the company he keeps. So no, we don't want to be unfree, such as those societies are. Then the governments can get away with any malfeasance, and the media dare not expose it. Huge-scale corruption, cruelty and injustice. So however bad the free press is, it's still far better than the alternative. It's absolutely vital, this organ of democracy. Anyway, so we need the media there to expose malfeasance and deceit by the establishment. And what is fake news? Who's decide what's true and what's not? So no, I think we've got a lot of people allow people to say what they want. Sometimes we're unsure what the truth is. We don't even find out for centuries. We're still finding things out about history. So we need historical revisionism as well. We need to be able to debate events in the past without banning this or that. So on my side, we're not absolutists. We accept that incitement to crime ought to be illegal and ought to be punished, fine. We already have libel laws. They should stay civil and not become criminal. So for all the reasons I've outlined heretofore, I beg to oppose.